Hi, I'm Danny Romero, and welcome to a Your Election 2015 special looking at the key marginal seat of Mid-Dorset and North Poole. With more than 60,000 votes up for grabs, it's actually the smallest constituency in Dorset, but you could argue it's also the county's most important in the upcoming election. Why? Because it will be tightly fought between the Liberal Democrats and the Conservatives. Current polls suggest it is neck and neck, and if the Tories want to be sure of forming the next government, they need to win this seat. So how much do people living in this constituency actually know about the people competing to represent them? Sylvia Garaba went to Wimborne to find out.
Okay. Do you know who your local candidates are?
No.
Local, I don't know, to tell the truth. Yeah.
No idea at all. And I'm quite interested in politics,
Okay.
but I have no idea. I'd like to actually see them. They don't come round to the door because it's like shopping online or going to the store. When I go to the store, I get a better view of what it's really all about. I mean, I will buy things online, but a candidate is someone who really I need to trust, and someone who just puts a leaflet through the door or communicates via email, not making enough effort. Yes, they really should be strong enough to put forward the views that they have, not just counter the arguments of the opposition.
Even though many voters still don't know who their candidates are, they have a clear idea on what their ideal candidate should be like.
People like to vote for someone they perhaps know or who they've been aware of from a business point of view, or they've worked in the community, doing things locally. I think people are more reassured.
What I really look for is somebody who is honest, says it how it is, doesn't sort of hide anything. I want to know what is truly happening. I want them to be in touch. I want them to have access to information, to be available. So if I have an issue, I would like to be able to talk to my local politician.
I think it's become a bit of a TV show, the whole election thing, and it's mainly people think, oh, we're voting for the Prime Minister, when actually you're voting on a local scale for what's doing it for you. And I don't think the party leaders particularly interact with the younger people, and people don't realise that actually they're voting for things that happen in their local community.
Somebody who's honest and who really belongs and understands the place they're trying to represent.
So with less than 50 days to the general election, the candidates in Mid-Dorset and North Poole are gearing up for the fight of their life. We just saw how many people in Wimborne had never heard of those standing in the seat. But as Magdalena Balenovic reports, the electorate did know what they think is important in the upcoming poll.
Picturesque Wareham in Dorset, but the issues for the people on the high street are the same as elsewhere. Fixed pricing, rights for small businesses, infrastructure and living wage. But for the traders on the market, it all comes down to sausages and milk.
I would say drop the VAT, cut the VAT. Because if you cut the VAT, people have got more money to spend, haven't they? Because it goes wrong for everybody. That's what I say. That's all I know.
Well, I think the price of milk should be put up for a start, because farmers are getting nothing for milk. I mean, milk costs less than a bottle of water in some cases, so there should be a minimum price for milk that the government should maybe make the supermarkets pay the farmer in the first place. Affordable housing is a big one around here, because people from London, they come down by second homes, and that forces the price of house. I think should do is build affordable housing and make sure that it's locals buying the housing and not outsiders.
Pensioners and the people over 65 make up 25% of the voting population, and some resent the political elite because they feel marginalised.
The government think we, as a county, because we've got a lot of retired people here, they think that we're rich. And we get the fourth lowest payment from the government, from their coffers, to give to councils to help them out. We are the fourth lowest.
Since 16-year-olds were given the vote in the Scottish independence referendum, it's now an issue for the rest of the UK. Wimborne High School student Abby Griffiths shares her views on what politicians should focus on in order to win over the younger population.
I think there's quite a lot of young people that hang around on the streets, and that in this area we should have more like youth clubs and things for us to do in the evenings. I also think that the gyms, they're too expensive in this area, so, and the ones that are cheaper, we have to get on the bus to go and use them.
The candidates of the leading parties for the Mid-Dorset and North Poole constituency addressed these and many other issues at a special debate for YourElection15 in Canford Heath Community Centre.
Few issues, some new housing developments. I think there are some people who are very unhappy about that. Certainly transport and infrastructure. Dorset tends to get left behind in terms of infrastructure spending. I think that healthcare, perhaps for the elderly people, there's quite an elderly population.
That one has to be the economy, because if you get the economy right, then everything else can follow. So I'm focusing on jobs, I'm focusing on making sure that the economic recovery continues. So that for me is number one.
My main issue across the board is creating a fairer society, but at the same time without throwing our financial responsibility out the window. So it's that balance and allowing opportunity for everybody. But the main single issue is probably the NHS.
The important thing in this election is really about living standards, because although the government say that the economy is doing well, people aren't actually feeling it on the ground. So what we want to do is try and improve basic living standards for people and try and think about the next generation too.
It's been a tough debate inside, but the fight on the May the 7th will be even tougher. What matters here does not affect only this constituency, but if the Tories have any hope of forming the next government, they must win this seat.
96% of constituents in Mid-Dorset and Poole are white and British. However, immigration was one of those issues that resonated most with many of the people we spoke to. That might go some way to explaining a 14% rise in support for UKIP since 2010. But UKIP denies it's a single-issue party. Abby Alamar investigates.
Campaigning on the streets of Dorset, UKIP volunteers say talking to the people is their main weapon in the forthcoming election.
I've been leafleting in this particular area for about 3 months now. Campaigning, actually meeting people on the doorstep, is the most effective way I find.
Since 2010, the UKIP vote is up by 14% in the seat. Local party leaders say the electorate is increasingly disillusioned with main parties.
Well, I would say that we are really the people's army of Britain. We're prepared to listen to what people actually want. We're not imposing ideas on them. We're not saying you must do this, you must do that. We're there to listen to people. We're there to take their views on board. And we want to give people as much say in local politics as possible through local referenda.
That may be so, but recent polls show this is a very tight race between the Conservatives and Liberal Democrats.
I think all the smaller parties are a threat. I think the UKIP are less of a threat to the classic Liberal Democrat voter because we stand for tolerance, fairness and openness, and that doesn't tend to chime all that well with the UKIP typical voter.
Threat, not a threat to us, it's a worry because it is normalising a view of the world which I don't recognise and I don't accept. It's incredibly negative. It's trying to divide people, and I just don't think it's particularly helpful. They've not got anything positive to say.
I see everyone as threats. That's my view. I take nothing for granted, and I'm trying to secure and fight for every single vote. So it's not just UKIP, it's not just the Lib Dems or Greens or Labour, it's every single one of them.
So if the polls are to be trusted, then UKIP has its work cut out to actually win the seat on May 7th.
The Green Party didn't take part in the special debate held at Canford Heath today. They were invited but were unable to take part. The Lord Ashcroft polls put the Greens at 3% in Mid-Dorset and North Poole. And even though other candidates don't feel threatened by these statistics, Mark Chivers, the prospective parliamentary candidate, explains why the Green Party are a good option for dissatisfied voters.
I think there's a number of reasons. I think we often hear about people being disillusioned with politics as usual. I think most people see there's very little difference between the three main parties. Lots of younger people in particular, I think, are disillusioned with the Lib Dems having gone into coalition with the Tories and don't really see a huge difference with the Labour Party, and don't buy the message that UKIP are the alternative. And so looking around and looking to do something, I think they look at what the Green Party stands for and find out that it actually makes a lot of sense, and they recognise a lot in our policies that interest them.
I think it's interesting because I think it reinforces what we've been saying for a long time, really, that young people are particularly interested in the kind of green issues, the environment and climate change, in a way which perhaps the mainstream political parties haven't concentrated on enough in the past. So I think it's good that they're standing, it's good that they're fielding so many candidates and that they're raising these issues, but in the end they're not going to get any seats.
The Greens have gone from being ignored to being scrutinised, and the more scrutiny they get, the more problems they start to have. And UKIP has had the same thing. We had it a little while ago, and you really have to start to clean your act up and become a bit more professional. And I think that the Greens are going to have to start to deal with that. But they've got a message. You know, they've got some ideas, and they're putting it forward.
People who are attracted to the Green Party aren't necessarily always attracted to the Conservative Party, but as I say, I want to secure every vote, and certainly young people who have told me they're tempted to vote Green, I've tried to persuade them on individual issues as to why they should vote for me as an individual, if not for the party.
I think young people have historically supported the Liberal Democrats. We do have very strong Green credentials, and it's right and normal that young people do think the environment is very important. Clearly, some young people feel that what happened with the tuition fees, they blame us for. Clearly that was a huge mistake on the part of some people in the party, and so I think a lot of the vote that's going to the Greens would sit very comfortably with the Lib Dems, but there is this problem some of them have with the tuition fee.
So now you know a little bit more about Dorset's key marginal. But what exactly is Your Election 15? The editor-in-chief, Joe Necessian, joins me now. Joe, you're the editor of Your Election 15. Can you tell us a little bit more about your coverage and what role you play?
So yeah, I'm the editor of Your Election 15, which is Bournemouth University's online multimedia coverage of the general election leading up to May the 7th. We launched our website last week, which has been, featuring news stories, features, articles, opinion pieces. We've also got a brilliant little piece called Young Voters of the Day, where we speak to 5 or 6 young voters from the area and ask them their issues, what they relate to, whether they're engaged with politics, whether they're not engaged with politics. We've also held radio broadcasts like today. So a week on from our online launch, we went over to Poole and we held a local hustings for the Mid Dorset and North Poole seat, where we engaged with the undecided voters there and brought in the local candidates to speak to them about certain issues.
And why did you choose to report from this seat? What was the aim?
We're Dorset based, so we're going to naturally focus on Dorset stories in some way. We are national, we're covering national stories all the way up to the election. But locally, the key marginal seat is Mid Dorset and North Poole, compared to the other seats in Dorset, which are predominantly Conservative and probably will be won by Conservative again. This seat is Liberal Democrat. It's held by Annette Brooke, and she's stepping down. Her successor, Vicky Slade, in the Liberal Democrat Party, has got a real fight on her hands to keep the seat from the Conservatives, who are ahead in polling. Michael Tomlinson is a Conservative candidate, and he was at the debate today, as was Vicky. And it's looking really interesting in that seat. It's a key marginal seat, and undecided voters will potentially make a real difference there. It could lead to, a change at Westminster in the party leader, just from the marginals like that seat across the country.
And has our coverage made a difference with undecided voters?
Well, yeah, as I said, there was undecided voters there today. Robert from Poole came in. He didn't have a preference between the main parties. It was down to his decision on his beliefs or his issues, which he felt were important to him, which were pensioners' rights and savings and interest and savings, I think. He left having ruled out one party, which he didn't tell us. He gave us a hint at who it was. You can check that on the website, YourElection15.co.uk. But he didn't definitely tell us who he was going to vote for. But hopefully we'll follow him all the way up to May the 7th and see who he votes for in the end. And it's undecided voters like this which are going to decide this election, which is the tightest in a generation.
And Joe, what is our coverage looking like for the next couple of weeks?
Well, brilliant launch last week with the website. It's been great all week. We had the radio today, which was fantastic. We're going to live blog the leaders' debate tomorrow. Not much of a debate. It's going to be two leaders being questioned separately. But we'll live blog that regardless, see what that takes us. All the other debates, the 7-party debates, and the ones also included by the main broadcasters will also be, live blogged and tweeted. And check our social media accounts. We're on pretty much everything: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Meerkat today, where we live streamed the video streamed the debate. And then obviously on May the 7th is when it really kicks off. We're going to have live TV, live radio, and online, of course, all night until we get a result and the voters decide who they want as our next Prime Minister.
Thanks, Joe. And that's it for us from now. But don't forget, for all the latest news and analysis, go to YourElection15.co.uk.